Grace Ambassador and I'm a HBQ, a home-based quilter. Thank you for joining me today. I have got this lovely quilt on my frame and I'm going to show you some of the features of gold in QCT 5 software. So thank you for joining me and we'll get on and I'll show you how easy it is to do fabulous borders within gold. We're in the home screen of our software, and to get this started I need to select our gold features icon. So let's go ahead and select that. Today we'll be playing with the borders and corners, so let's go ahead and select that icon. Now our software is opened up in the home screen of borders and corners. The first thing you'll see is this is highlighted, so this is border 1 style and placement. This is where we need to tell the software what we're doing. So it defaults to mitered corner. What we'd like to do is we'd like to pick this one. So when I select it, you'll see that it's active because it's blue and my screen changed and I now have these grey references. So I'm really happy. The most important thing that we need to do is before we go any further is we actually have to place it, give the software parameters to be able to place the designs. And that's what we use these pink icons for. So I'm going to gently move my machine down to the left and we'll start setting our design. Alright, so I gently moved the machine down to the left hand side and I need to make sure that my hobbing foot and needle is right at the point of the top left of the quilt where I want to place this border, and you'll see that the screen moved. Then what I'm going to do is come in and I'm going to do the corresponding inner left border point. And then come down and do the bottom left outer, then the inner left outer. Okay, then I will go down and do my right hand side. So move the machine down to the right hand, and once again I've got my hobbing foot and my needle lined up with the top right hand outer point, and I select the corresponding pink dot. Then the inner right corresponding pink dot, right hand bottom, and I just make sure that my needle is exactly where I want it to be. Great, now this is where the fun begins. I'm now going to go down using the blue arrow key and I'm going to set some margins. Now I've got both here. I'm going to show you, this is a great little feature. If I unlock, I get the outer and the inner, because sometimes I might like to set the outer at say 0.5 because it's the top of a quilt and I want a 1/4 inch for binding and 1/4 inch before my quilting design. But for today, I'm going to set this at 0.25 and the inner to be the same. If I hadn't unlocked it, it would do both margins. You'll also see on my screen I now have these grey lines, and that's setting the pattern and the design within the parameters I just set. Let's have some fun. Let's hit number 3. Just use your blue arrow keys and then we're going to select our first design. Let's go and select our corner. Now I'm going to use a pre-purchase design. If I was using the inbuilt gold, I'd go here. But you'll see that I'm actually in my new drive D and it's actually opened for me, and I'll be doing the corner, which will be this one. I tap it, it's blue, it's active, and I select open. Now I'm going to select yes. So I would like to remove, do I want to remove all? Yes, I do. There's no jumps, and I'm going to select OK. And of course the software now wants me to save that, so I'll just tap here and give it a name. Sophia. Close and save. Enter, save. And the pattern is there now for me to use at any other time. And I'm just going to wait patiently for it to load the design. Woohoo! Now let's do this area here. Now, if I go ahead and select center, I'm only going to get a design here in the center. We want to fill this space. So it's important that I go ahead and select a fill border. And there's my Sophia, and I believe it is border number 2, and let's select open. And I'll just select Jess to be on the safe side. That's all good. Okay. And I'm just going to type Sophia. And I'll just put B for border. Enter and save. Now you can see, I'll just zoom this up a bit for us so that we can see this nice and big. I always like to do this. I like to check by just moving along and zooming. I can see how my design is placed. So if it was crossing over at any point, I would simply select this autofill. I would uncheck it, and then this is where I'd be able to use the plus and minus keys to alter the design. But honestly, I couldn't be happier with how that design has actually placed. So let's hit the fit so we can see it back on our screen more clearly. Now you will see under get patterns I have flip patterns. Now some of the patterns, when we go to place them on the bottom border or the sides, we might need to flip or rotate those. I will show you how to do those when we get down to the bottom border. And I can also go down to number 5, which is edit the connections. So this would remove the jumps. I don't know how this will play out, so I'm quite happy to leave that where it is, and I'm just going to literally go back to border. I'm very pleased, so let's go ahead and select Sew All. Now, it's in here, and I'm just going to quickly save it. It's always easier to save because life happens, and I'm just going to call that my top border. I'll put a space. And save it. Just because life happens, I could be halfway doing something and people turn up. So now I'm ready to go down to my left-hand side because green tells me that's my start point and red tells me that that's my stop. I do have 2 jumps there, but I'm happy to stop and bury those threads. Okay, so I've moved down the left-hand side, and I hate the pull bobbin function, so I like to just use the toolbox. I select move to start. Now my machine is going to move to the start point of the design. And then I'll do toolbox, and I'll literally do a single stitch to bring up that bobbin thread. And when I like to hold them and then select sew when I'm ready. Now that our top border has completed stitching, I've rolled on the quilt and I'm ready to set up the bottom part of our border. This is really quite easy. So we're back at our home screen for borders and corners. What I need to do is select this icon here, and when I select it, it comes up with bottom, and we get this warning: you must replace the border corner points. So that means we need to use each of these pink dots and register the parameters again. So I'm going to go ahead and select OK. It's really very easy from this point because I don't need to go to margins or get patterns or even flip the design because the software is quite clever. It's already flipped it for us. So let's go ahead and start placing that border. So once again, I'm going to start at the bottom left. So this bottom left corner, I'm going to move my foot and make sure my needle aligns with that point in the position and select the corresponding pink dot. Then I'm going to come in and do the inner left bottom, select the corresponding pink dot, move up as far as I can go, select, come across and do the left outer. And now I'm ready to go down to the right hand side. So once again I'm going to start on the outer of the bottom right corner, line up my foot and my needle, select the corresponding pink, do the inner, go up and do the upper inner on the right, gently move the machine across, and as you can see, I'm really happy at this point, so I'm going to go ahead and select sew all. My machine is connecting. Okay, so the design is ready to sew, and once again I'm not going to optimize the design like I did for the top border. I will just finish those and bury the threads. Now what I want to do is I want to show you another fabulous feature within the Gold software. So it's from our plugins menu, drop down, it's called Fabric Compensation. Now this will take a moment to load. The fabric compensation allows us to mark all the seams in the border and adjust the pattern to accurately fit our quilt top, simply by slowly moving the machine across the quilt top surface and marking the seams. Okay, so this is the fabric comp screen, and you'll notice that we have this dark green line. So that's denoting that we're going to start with this bottom border of the quilt top surface. Then, what we do is as we move the machine and the needle across the surface, we will use this plus icon to anchor each position. So let's get started. Hopping foot and needle, so I just make sure it's where I want it all lined up on the quilt top surface, and like I said, I tap the plus sign and you'll see I have a little node there denoting that it's been anchored to that point. And I just move across slowly and gently, placing as little or as many as you would like. And this just allows me to sew this border with absolute confidence, making sure that I'm not going to be stitching on the border. Then what I'm going to do is when I come back, because I've done the bottom, I'm going to select next, and you'll see that it's told me it wants to do the outer right. So once again I will move my machine to where I feel comfortable, lined up needle and foot, and select the green plus and go up the side. Select next. It's now doing the inner right border for me. It takes a couple of minutes to do this extra step, and it's wonderful. I'm going to hit next. Now I'm going to do the top, the bottom border, and it just means I don't have to trace. It gives me the confidence. And it beautifully adjusts the pattern. And I hit next. Do the inner left border. Next. that I'm happy, I will just go ahead and select OK. It will be doing those adjustments for me. And it's great. Green is go, red is stop. I'll move my machine down to the left-hand side and I will start stitching. Okay, we've mastered the top and bottom border. Now what we'd like to do is we would like to stitch between the border corners. So I've gone ahead and I've rotated the quilt ready for us to start. So the first thing we're going to do is tap the border style. So we've got the border style. Now we're going to make sure that our corner is the same as our top and bottom was. Now we're actually going to go and we're going to tap this lock verticals. And when I see the green tick, I now know that it is active. I'm going to make sure that I have top also selected because naturally the last one I did was bottom. Now what we're going to do is we're going to register the parameters exactly as we did previously for the top and bottom border. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so gently move your machine down to the left and once again, matching my needle and my hobbing foot to the top left corner, I'm going to select the pink corresponding dot. Move into the inner left. Once again, tap the corresponding pink dot. Okay, so now let's do the right hand. So it's the right hand outer top, corresponding pink, right hand inner, and then of course I will do the bottom right, inner, and the bottom left outer. Then I'm going to go and select margins, and with the margins what I'm going to do is going to make sure that they're the same parameter that I previously selected. So let's go ahead, 0.250, inner 0. So I'm very happy. Now this is where we're going to tell the software what we're doing. So I'm going to set a custom border area. Now what we're going to do is set the left edge and the right edge. We have to set this parameter manually to tell the machine where we last finished stitching and where we're going to line up our quilting designs. So I'm going to head down to the left hand side first. So we're ready to go. I've moved my machine down. Now, I've been clever and I've marked myself a little blue spot with my blue water soluble pen. And that's the left edge where I want my stitching to start stitching. So let's go ahead and select left edge. And you will see how the screen changes and I get this fabulous green line showing me where I'm going to match my design. Let's go ahead and mark the right hand border. So once again, I've got a little blue water soluble mark that I marked with my pen. Just makes it easier for me to see. So now I'm just going to travel up from there and I'm going to go ahead and select the right edge. You'll now see on our screen we have a green, which is our left, and red, which is our right. So green is where our pattern will start, red is where our pattern will stop. Let's go ahead and get some patterns. So let's arrow down using the blue keys to 3, get patterns. We're going to select border and we're going to use our Sophia B, which was the original border pattern, selected it and let's hit open. And you'll see that it filled beautifully. Okay, congratulations, you've done your top border and your bottom border. So let's go ahead and do our sides. And I'm going to show you how easy this is. So I've gone and opened my gold software, selected the border and corners. Make sure you're on border style 1 placement. Next thing what we need to do is we need to match our corners to what we did on the top and bottom. So let's go ahead and select corner. Now don't be discouraged when I say we have to go and place it. We've got to set the parameters and we will be setting them exactly the same as we did for the top and bottom. So let's gently move our machine down to the left. Alright, so let's start. Moving our hobbing foot and needle to the top left corner. We select the pink dot to register. Left, inner border, select, come down. We're just setting the parameters and setting the pink corresponding dot. Let's go down to our right hand border. Once again, make sure that the top right outer, select the corresponding pink dot, inner right pink, then the outer bottom pink, inner bottom pink. So that's great. Now, top is selected. Let's make sure we've got vertical lock selected. Then just coming down to our margins, we're going to set them exactly the same as we did for our top and bottom. And we know it's the same for both, so let's just go ahead and select both. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to have to set some margins. These margins are to tell it to sew between here and here where we existing quilting is already. So we're going to start with our left edge. I've gently moved the machine down to the left. Now this is where my quilting has finished. I've marked it with a blue water soluble pen just to make it a little easy visually for me to see. So coming down to my blue dot, I'm going to come up, and this is where it's important, girls. We need to select this left edge icon. And you'll note on our screen, we suddenly get a green line indicating where I want the design to stop. Now we need to move down to our right and replicate it. Once again, I've popped another blue water soluble dot. Now I'm just going to move up and I'm going to make sure I select the right edge. And you'll see we've got a lovely red line. So what we're now going to do is try and place our pattern between these two markers. So let's go ahead and scroll down to get patterns. We won't be worrying about corners this time, only border. And of course, we do know that it was Sophia, B for border, that we used. Select and open. And you can see that it is actually opened. We are literally ready to go ahead and sew this design. Now we do know that it would sew on the left and it's going to finish on the right. So let's go ahead and select all. Now we're at the home screen of sewing. Now this is where the fun begins. Like before, I'm going to show you how we're going to make sure that that's just perfect. Let's go to plugins and let's select fabric comp. Now this is so good. If I've rotated the quilt and I'm a little bit off, this will allow me to set this correctly. So once again, by moving my machine across the quilt top seam edge and hitting the plus icon, I will be registering little nodes and the pattern will perfectly adjust. So let's start on the left hand side. I've moved the machine down to the left. I've popped my needle on the seam line and now I just select that little plus and you'll see I have a lovely little node that came up to tell me that it was placed, and if it needed to make an adjustment, that's where it will occur. I'll move about 10 inches. You can put as many or as few as you like. Go ahead and place another one, and now I'll place my last one. So in all, I probably did 4 markings across the top of that seam line. It didn't move a lot, but enough for me to know that I'm really happy with what I'm doing. Now, to be able to do the bottom inner, all I will do is select next, and you'll see that it came up with the outer. I don't need to do the outer right, so just simply toggle. It's now doing the inner right, and I'm finally at the bottom seam. Now it's okay that I'm now going to move from right to left as long as I continue travelling the same direction in the path. So I'm going to go ahead and add my first node, and I'll really only need to add 4. And it means that it will sew inside the margins that I set and the design will be fabulous. Now that I'm really happy with the overall design, I'm not going to bother to set any parameters here because naturally we're not sewing anywhere. So I can actually just go ahead and hit the OK. One thing that I will remind you, if I place a node by hitting the cross and I don't like it, I can always undo. And of course these functions here will actually remove several or all. So just remember, you do have that ability to, if you've made a mistake, just to go back and undo. Now let's go ahead and select OK. Now we're ready to start. I'm just going to move my machine to where I think it will start. I like to do toolbox, move to start point, and then I'm just going to do toolbox, single stitch, bring up my bobbin thread, and I'm happy to stitch out that design. So, well, as you can see on our screen, our design is finished. When I look down at the quilt, it's fabulous. All the designs lined up to our corners. So let's go ahead and select finished back to placement. We're back at our main screen, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to border placement. So I'm going to arrow up to number 1. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to select bottom. And you see that it said warning, you must replace the border corners on the fabric now that you have changed the edges. Do not assume that the border lines now shown are properly in place. So I select OK, make sure I'm on bottom, verticals are locked, corner, everything's fantastic. This is what's so wonderful about the software. It automatically mirror imaged the design ready for me to go. So I don't have to get patterns. I'm ready to literally roll on and advance the quilt to the last bottom section that needs to be stitched. Okay, so once again I'm going to start at the bottom left outer corner. I'm going to make sure my hobbing foot and needle are in position, press the corresponding pink dot, do the inner left, and I'm just simply registering it. And what that was is the software just told me it preferred me to do the outer before I do the inner. Okay, let's do the right hand side, starting with the bottom, moving my hobbing foot and the needle down using the corresponding pink dot. Inner right. Now I'm not going to make the same mistake as I did before. It's the outer right first and then the inner right. Now this is where it's really important. When I go, I'm going to arrow down to set margins. Although I have the red and green now, I really do need to make sure that I come back and I set those margins again, because those were the margins that I set for the top part of this border. So I will go ahead and do the right, and you see the pattern did adjust, so it really was important. Now I will place the left outer margin, and let's select. Now I know with confidence that it's going to stitch within those margins and not stitch over my corner designs. So once again, sew all, and of course I'm going to go back up to plugins and select my fabric comp. Now it's come up with the dark green, so I'm going to start here at the bottom. So naturally I'm going to move my foot and my needle to the bottom edge and move in, and when I'm happy I'll place the first, and do a slight adjustment, and I'll continue travelling across the seam until all the nodes are set. Now I've done the bottom, so I'm going to hit next. And of course we're doing the outer borders, which are irrelevant. So I'm just going to toggle until I'm happy. I'm now at the top inside. So move my machine, start setting and lining up each of those points. And you can see it actually did a really good adjustment there. And that's because when I turn a quilt, it might not be absolutely perfect. Now I'm really happy, so I'll go ahead and select OK. I'm here, green is start, red is stop. So I will go down and I will stitch from the left hand side. Okay, so we're at the end and I'm really happy with everything. The border's stitched out perfectly. I want to take the time to say, remember you can download the instructions, print them, and step by step you can easily achieve perfect quilt borders. So here we have it. It's all finished, and I just wanted to show you how beautifully it all lined up using the fabric compensation and how pretty the quilting looks. So thank you for watching, and we'll see you soon.